all to who's joining me here tonight. I'm Terri Paddock. I'm very pleased to be able to chair this pro-show discussion for the premiere production of Snowflakes, which is a new play written by Robert Boulton, who also appears in the play with Henry Davis and Niamh Finlay. Have I pronounced those correctly? Yeah. And it is directed by Mike Cottrell. Have I got that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm really worried about pronunciation. So it is the playwriting debut for Robert. It is the debut production from Dissident Theatre company, which was co-founded by Robert and Mike, right?
Indeed.
So before we speak specifically about Snowflakes, can we just, Robert and Mike, can you tell me why you founded Dissident and why you named it Dissident? Because it's a good name.
Should I take the first part? Do you want to take the second part?
Yeah, sure.
Because you know that. Yeah. Do you want to be honest about that part?
Yeah.
We worked at the understudy bar at the National Theatre. That's where myself, Mike, Maria, Nat over there all met. And I'd met Mike's brother John at university, and then we kind of got to know each other at John's birthday parties. Whilst Mike was at uni.
I was 15 and I was just sort of there occasionally.
Yeah. Well, I was only 19.
How old are you now?
I'm 27.
I've just hit the big 3-0, so there's 3 years between us. But we started working in the understudy and then actually got to know each other properly, started talking about art, started seeing plays together. And I'd written the very early draft of Snowflakes in late summer 2018, and we just started chatting about it. I was like, do you want to maybe get an R&D together? Like, we did the R&D and we thought we had something, so we decided, well, let's not just do a play, like let's start a company ethos out and see how that goes, and we'll move from there, I guess.
So the play and the company were really developed hand in hand.
Yeah. And also a huge shout out goes to there was a third member of the company originally, Grace Irvin, who I did my directing masters with at university. She left the company because she's now no longer involved in theatre. But big shout out to Grace as well, because she was also the founding member.
Yeah. Grace. And Mike, why Dissident?
Well, because when we met, a big part of it, Rob had the play, but then I was very keen, and Rob shared it beautifully. Exactly as it says, we wanted to start with a company ethos that wasn't just putting on something. We wanted very clearly from the start to be able to be somewhere that was as open as we could, that we could, even though we don't have a lot, that we could pay people from the very start, that we could, the aim was to become a place where we hope that artists can sort of like come and we can help provide sort of like a platform that we can be a place that people want to come and work with us, and to set that up with a strong basis. And then when we were looking for this, what Rob was alluding to, we did look up random name generators for a very long time. But then that word sort of popped up, Dissident, and it gave us sort of a inkling of, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do this properly and actually try and say something. And with Snowflakes, there was something that was overtly political, and something that felt, if we're going to do this, let's do this properly, and like set up a sort of mission from the start of trying to say things properly.
And the vocab lesson here is dissident means?
Dissident means people who... It is an individual who stands against the accepted grain of things, who goes against the sort of regular stream of thought, and whether like that for us is still something we're working out, but it seemed like a nice statement of intent to go, okay, let's try and do something. That might not be what we expect.
But it is very fitting for this play, and
indeed,
the statement that you make with the play and the company, it does chime with the definition, I can promise you. Okay.
We agree.
I know you do. So then Robert, tell me, where did the original idea come from for Snowflakes?
Christ. Originally it was going to be a short film, and I was starting to write that. The only thing that survived from that short film is the title. Like it was a group of friends having kind of comedic conversation at a around the table. It was more like a dialogue exercise with me and a couple of actors. It was like, oh, it'd be fun if we got together and did this thing, and that could be a fun just little thing to play with, maybe start doing a film. And it didn't work out, but I liked the themes we're doing it, whether we're kind of all about a little bit of social justice stuff in there and touching on kind of a little bit of internet outrage and stuff like that. And then honestly, I don't know how it got to what it is now. It seemed I started writing a lot of weird little monologues and stuff like that, and they all kind of were around the similar themes. And then eventually there were some monologues, and then there was some dialogue that connected to monologues, and then I had an ending of the play that I had no idea how to get to, and then I tried to connect it. So it was very scatterbrained, which if you know me is quite, I flit a lot, so I think that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense to any of you. It makes sense to me, most importantly.
No, it does make sense. It does make. A long time ago, I wrote a few novels, and yeah, I kind of backed into my first novel in a similar way. Yeah. I chose the term. I called it episodic. It was an episodic approach to writing a longer
to crafting something. Yeah.
Can I steal that? Thank you.
But no, this is far more than episodic. It's a very clear through line to this story, and it's quite shocking. Really, really shocking. So. We were originally meant to have this conversation back in April 2020 here at the Old Red Lion when Snowflakes was originally due to premiere. We all know what happened.
What happened? Let's not go there.
Yeah.
So Rob reminded me when we spoke earlier today that he was in the audience the last time I was here at the Old Red Lion. You both were, which was for like the last theatre performance in London before the first lockdown, which was
the nuclear war.
Yes, the Simon Stevens play, part of the triptych, and we knew that theatres were closing. We knew we were one of the last performances. It was an incredibly emotional night for all of us, and so I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. I can come back here for the first time and talk to you. But what I wanted to say, apart from that, was that I'm curious, because we have this interruption, is what we've seen here now the same thing I would have seen if I'd seen it in April 2020? How has this gap affected the play?
Well, Henry wouldn't be here.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Henry wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
The sets changed around a bit. Yeah. I think obviously it's our first full production as a company. We've only ever done an R&D before this. For this. Myself and Mike, I don't think we're ashamed to say we made a lot of mistakes first time round. We were not prepared for a lot of things that were coming, and we were kind of feeling things out and figuring out as we were going. Very much figuring out as we were going along. I think it has allowed us to refine the scripts. The script's basically the same. There's a couple of little things the same. The script's very much the same. It's given Alice, certainly with this amazing set, the chance to move things around and collaborate with the lighting designer more in particular. Jonathan Chan is an amazing lighting designer.
And let's just name check Alice Whitehead.
Alice Whitehead, yes.
Amazing Alice Whitehead.
Designer.
And Jonathan Chan, the lighting designer.
Yeah.
And because script-wise it didn't change a lot at all.
There's like a few lines.
But what was fascinating about coming back to it with these guys are fresh and with Nat and Maria as well is that even without changing things within the script itself, the things that we have lived through over the past year were there when we were having the conversations about it, and we did it. It was a quick process. We only did this in 2 weeks, but the depth of what we were talking about is far greater than it would be when we did it last year. And
I haven't spent a year just living online.
Well, living online, and there have been so many more conversations now about these three the three sides of these characters that show how performative this kind of social justice has become, and how the depth of the sort of angst against social media outrage, I think, has only got bigger. And I think a year and a half ago it was a fascinating idea, but I think it's only deepened because the topics that we're discussing have got more intense, and there is much more responsibility that people themselves have to have about the way they behave online. And because one of the things that emerged beautifully, like when we were talking about this show, is that what is never mentioned until the very end of this show is the the important fact of it's the victims of it who are never acknowledged when things like this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that we didn't actually, because we were doing it so quickly, like didn't consider a lot last time, but that was so important to find this time. And in the wake of everything that's happening recently, I think that was something that was really important that we
Well, it really
acknowledged.
strikes me that we're seeing this week, in the week that Sarah Everard's killer, who I won't name,
Of course.
has been convicted. So what's interesting about what happens in the play is so many things, but yes, there's the outrage, but there is also at the base, like, something horrible has been done, two people potentially have done something horrible that has attracted this outrage, and how do we deal with that outrage? And you can, just listening this week to some of the details of the crime that was perpetrated, you can understand. So can you, I'm looking at the actors now, can you get into that place where you can understand vigilantism, first of all?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think right now we are really looking at our police forces, and people there that are meant to look after us, and the question of defunding the police feels more important than ever. And I guess this play touches on the extremes of what happens when you don't trust your systems. And it kind of feels, although obviously there's parts of it that we wouldn't recommend, but at the root of it, which is something I guess that has come after this year, that maybe I don't know as an actor if I felt as sincerely, was that it is just a form of extremism, but from a problem that is there, and that the root of it is in truth. So it does kind of feel this week, and particularly this week, really heavy.
I think if hearing some of those details, I might not have been as sympathetic to the idea that people would go to that extreme. So it really catches the moment, I think, in that way. And then, of course, there's the social media outrage. I wanted to speak to you, Henry, because I think you're the only one who's not on social media yourself, are you?
I am.
Are you? Okay, right.
He's not on Twitter.
I'm not on Twitter, no.
Okay.
I'm not particularly active on it. It's not because it's just, I think I'm slightly, I don't know, I didn't grow up with this sort of importance of it, really importance on it, and I find it all a bit weird, to be honest.
I wonder, do you think social media does make us feel more or less impotent, Robert? More or less angry?
It depends which platform you're talking about. I mean, that's the thing. There's me and Niamh have had this conversation. Niamh's not on Instagram, for instance. I don't particularly find Instagram that tricky. Like it's not. It's for me, like, especially because I have a bit of a visual background as well with photography. It's like, cool, this is a place to share images and stuff like that. But Twitter, I really struggle with Twitter. I begrudgingly use Twitter because it's quite important to in theatre. But again, it depends which platform. Like, I'm not gonna.
And it's always changing.
It is always changing. Yeah. I mean, Facebook today is not the Facebook of 2008. It's not the Facebook of 2019. It's not. It's this ever shifting amorphous blob.
It's like.
And I can't do another one. I can't get on to TikTok.
That's the thing. It just seems so cyclical. It's just like by the time I've downloaded Instagram and just put up a profile and tried to follow my friends, they're all on something different. So what's the point? So,
it is very time consuming. Very time consuming. Now, I'm also really fascinated, Henry, by your speech in the play. Well, a couple of your monologue sections about snowflakes. I have to say that is a term I really despise. The term snowflakes. I hate it.
It means so much to so many people, and it means so many different things to so many people. It's like whether you like it or hate it, it has so much meaning behind it.
Yes, and I also hate how people use the word woke. Because I think, why is it a bad thing to be awake to injustice? So when it's used as a derogatory term.
Well, it's bad when someone uses it to publicise themselves. When it's performative. It's not, they're not actually doing anything. They're just saying, they're making a post. They're saying this thing. What have you actually done? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's about doing. It's not about saying is fine. And obviously, that there is a limit to what you can do at any one time. We are all just one tiny person spinning on this planet, going round and round and round. But it's about, can you actually do something? Can you act on your words and just don't make the words empty?
Take responsibility for it rather than just say that you are.
And so the character that Henry plays, Tony, I kept trying to figure out in my mind, who is this? Like, who is this modelled on? Have you decided in your mind?
I don't know if Henry does. I have several people it was loosely modelled on. When I first writing it was kind of. I mean, it's nothing like you're playing it now, but it's kind of like a Milo Yiannopoulos.
Oh my God!
Yeah. But imagine like that. But obviously, he's kind of faded into oblivion. Thank God.
Because he got removed from social media.
Well, exactly. and we're back to it. But yeah, it's lots of the kind of. It's more the sort of people who make a career by commenting on outrage. It's that sort of. It's like they complain about the world at the same time as fueling the complaints that is them fueling their career. It's the kind of the outrage mongers.
Okay, so that's one. Who's the other? Henry? Have you got this in mind?
Not anyone that I actually sort of base the character on per se. Just I with that sort of idea that he was someone who does these public appearances and in interviews and commenting on things on YouTube and things. It was, I watched Russell Brand's videos, James O'Brien, and so varying degrees of sort of where I value their opinion and stuff, but it was more about finding sort of this guy who didn't really the conflict of how he fitted into this society that had suddenly been given birth to, and where his place was. So it was more about how his opinions making them important still. So
Piers.
Oh yes.
A little Piers, a little Piers. But I mean, the sort of entitlement was important. But then, what I think is so important with it is like whether he did the thing or not, which I have my opinion on, and I won't share with anyone. It's about how he sees it, and what you're talking about at the beginning, like the sort of what our views on the male gaze and how people sort of really look at themselves now and view their actions from a decade ago, and how you can sort of bury that and convince yourself that you did something right, that you did that it was all okay.
Interesting.
So
I'm imagining if Tony made it out of the room, he would go straight into like a prime time slot on GB News or something like that. Do you think?
Yeah.
Dan Wootton, watch out. Now Beth raised a really good question. Do you want to ask it, Beth?
Oh, I can't remember what I said earlier. But
Yes, please.
Oh no, I do remember.
I remember.
I wanted to ask about your guys' relationship with your two characters, whether there were any key moments where you feel like your characters had a stronger moment of an understanding and connection in a way, away from the sort of known monster that is Marcus.
I kept thinking there must be a backstory between them as well, no?
It's funny, like, I think we're finding it even more as the one goes on. Like, tonight there were moments there that we've kind of built purely now that we're a little bit more comfortable in the space, and we're kind of going, actually, if I stand here, he can't see me, and how does that change if he can't direct a line to me or whatever? And so I think every night, which is so nice about Henry, is that we don't, it's not necessarily set. Like, Mike has a lovely way of working in the sense of the intention and the feeling and the thoughts are very clear. But then once we get them on their feet and a position of a foot change or a turn of a head, it kind of changes everything. So we're definitely finding them even more, and it's really colouring the story, and the kind of character is super objective even more, which is really nice. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, there's definitely been like something there, and I don't. From my side, I think it comes from Tony's sort of his part of his survival tactics, and that's sort of one of the interesting things I think about the characters, because there are questionable ways in which he will do things. He is willing to sort of try and use his masculinity to sort of I'll just be able to charm her.
Yeah.
And she'll let me out.
And he is very charming.
But yeah, it doesn't work. But then I think he can see the cracks. You can see that there's someone there who his opinions which are
different,
pretty different. But you know, he can use them. He's not going to get through to Marcus.
No.
So there's some light that he can see in her. So she's not lost.
Robert, you are really in touch with your inner sadist.
This is weird. It's weird because
I'm so sorry.
It's weird because we've done two previews and then one press, and I felt the most relaxed I've ever felt on stage tonight. It was lovely. I don't know what that says about me.
Have you taken the Psychopath Test?
No.
Oh, we should do that.
Yes, I think
Should we do that?
so.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do it live.
Little last night joy.
After party, you discover how you don't want to do the next run.
Well, we did talk like in rehearsals a lot about narcissism. That we talked about. There was a video that popped up recently that sort of went through the narcissism, because as a psychological disorder, the same with the psychopathy is, and so many people sort of conflate those two a lot of the time.
And it's also become a buzzword as well.
Yeah.
People quite kind of use it quite flippantly.
Yeah.
They're a narcissist. And
Yeah.
it's like the difference between being a narcissist or behaving narcissistically, which everybody can.
Yes.
And that kind of balance was fun to kind of play with.
You haven't read the John Ronson book?
I have.
Oh yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really. Isla, did you have a question?
I have so many questions.
Oh, right.
Right, lay on us. All right.
I've got two very different ones. I think, first of all, was there a reason that you focused mainly on like both of the guys being accused of sexual violence effectively? Was there a reason behind that? And I think it was really, for me, it was really interesting having a woman in the room and her perspective on that. So maybe you want to answer that question in terms of how you might feel that more deeply. Second one, completely pivoting onto another theme, is I think one of the things, as somebody who's from this generation myself, is I work in politics, by the way, so this is a little bit. I'm not a politician, I come from politics. So I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and you know, I saw the kind of, Terri and I have had this conversation a lot, the rise of Trump and people like that. And at the core of that is attacking the idea of the truth. And social media allows you to form an opinion of people, as this play elaborates, even when they might be innocent. People develop these reputations that people always have an opinion on something. You know, people have an opinion on the dress that Kim Kardashian wore to something. You know, thousands of people have this kind of opinion. So for me, I suppose the question is, do we think that we're moving to a future where the truth is a much more a thing that doesn't really exist? And I would argue that the truth existing is a good thing, backed up by the right institutions, as you were alluding to. What happens when institutions fall apart and they can't back up people with evidence as to what the truth is? And does that mean that I felt like this play was very kind of Black Mirror-y in a way?
Well, funny you should mention that. They use that in their marketing.
We got that in a lovely review today as well.
But you know, what does that mean for what our society might look like? I would argue it's a really bad thing because it allows people like Trump and Milo, like you were saying, to rise and just spew whatever hatred that they want and not have to back it up by facts. But I think that's kind of a theme that I took away.
Well, those are two very good questions. So we're just going to park the post-truth one for the moment, because I think we've put that, cogitate on that in the back of your mind. But let's deal with the sexual violence one first.
It came, first of all, the initial idea was a revenge tale. Like that's the core. That was the core of it, and it was a very good friend of mine, Megan Cronin, who was a writer who I've worked with before, and she said, when I was just writing bits of dialogue, I gave it to her, and she said, make Marcus the worst ally you could possibly make, and so that's where that suggestion came from, and
it's a good note.
Yeah, it was a good note, because it was really just a dialogue exercise before then, and Tony's, the reason it's the same is because it's a mirror. It's the same thing. They are two sides. It is the same. It is the same crime. It has. So it basically came from one was there, and then because it had to be the mirror. Like in my mind, the way I was writing it, it needs to be this mirror. So it was whatever I had chosen for Marcus being the worst possible ally, and I knew I wanted at the end. The first image I had for the play was not the image we managed to get because we don't have the budget for it. It's basically it's almost like Carrie-esque. It's like emerging victorious from a river, blood, and emerging like that. Because that's hard to clean up. But yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like a
And you can
genesis
see that.
bit. Cool. Good. I'm glad.
And Niamh, how did you feel having that power in the room?
Yeah, I think it's definitely obviously a different perspective, and I think now, like we said, more than ever, like this week, it has been very difficult to separate it, and you can't not say those words or think those thoughts without thinking about Sabina Nessa, Sarah Everard, and countless other people who have been killed by male violence. But I guess what it is just giving truth to a situation. So it's about trying, for me, when acting is about finding the truth in everything, and if that relates to you, great. And of course, I just don't think there's any people at the moment that aren't feeling that. And I think as a woman, and somebody who identifies as a woman, I definitely, even this week alone, have felt a fear in me, and I'm not. It's that you still get so disappointed and shocked, and I think, yeah, it's definitely it's a perspective that's going to be there, and I guess it's one that you don't have to work so hard on. You don't need to unpick what with my character. It's just like an ingrained instinct in you that makes it easier to act, I suppose, because it's rooted in such truth. Does that make sense?
And I'll try to summarize what the other one was, but tell me if I get it wrong. Is our increasing digital existence reliance taking us inexorably to a post-truth world?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's taken us there. I think we're there.
We're there.
It is the reason for the level of polarization you see on both sides of the political spectrum. Like this isn't like a particularly partisan thing. This is me saying no. Like there's elements on both sides that are just getting forced further and further apart because you're only seeing your side of it, and therefore you think that you're in the middle. Everyone thinks they're the middle, you know, and then but you're not the middle, and then you're not, and then you don't see the other side of things because we get forced down YouTube rabbit holes. We get forced down ways of people we follow on Twitter who drag us down and down and down further. You know, Tony's line that the space is the truth is the space between us. It's like there's subjective truth and objective reality. I don't think anyone can grasp what objective reality is. It's bigger than any one person can get. But together, if you actually are communicating properly, you should have the ability to kind of come up with some general sense of what the kind of truth is. But we don't do that because we're all in little bubbles.
Also, I don't know, have you read any Matthew DeConnitt?
Yeah, I love him.
You wrote an amazing book about post-truth.
Yes,
and kind
I
of,
read that.
it's
really
amazing,
really
and we spoke about that quite a lot in rehearsals. And basically how every era has something, and in 2016 we moved into post-truth, and a lot of people said it's because of Trump, but actually people like Trump are kind of a result of being in post-truth. They're a symptom. So it's kind of factually we are in the post-truth world, and I think what we talk about a lot with this play is whose truth, your truth. And I guess now we're in an era where people don't necessarily care about the truth, it's just their truth.
It's about being right.
It's about being right and having it,
No, it's about proving that you're, about showing that you're right. It's not about being right.
Yeah. And I'll mention a good friend of mine is Alex Curtis. He's doing a master's at the moment in exactly this field, and his topic of research was he took Trump and looked at what culturally sort of and movement and signify leads up to. So that does not happen out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out of it. And what I think is interesting about this is that it reminds us that the social media gives a sort of a blanket of a shield of sort of like feeling that your actions don't matter, but what should, the only way to sort of like probably get out there is to, I mean, this week has reminded us most, like it's accountability for the people who have supported that system and committing that sort of violence. It's not placing the accountability on the people who are subjected to those crimes. It's forcing people to think of why are they in the system that they have ended up in, and to take accountability for their own actions and their own guilt and their own traumas, whether they happened 10 years ago or whether they happened recently. So something like this that is in the blanket of a very sort of hypothetical sort of like near future world, but is a very much a Rooter story that is asking three people to take account for their own actions, because that's the only way that you can make truth out of that. Social media just has a big blanket for people to avoid their own thing.
You can, you're being very agree, but yes, go on then.
Fine, you ask good questions.
Henry was doing his dialogue that I was thinking about was cancel culture on that point. And it's just like, you said this thing 20 years ago. I mean, God knows I've changed my mind over the past 10 years. Like, I'm in my
If you don't, you're not human.
Exactly. And I think that part of this is resulting in us not letting people grow into the show on. And I think that's also quite dangerous.
I do think, with cancel culture, again, it's another one of those terms that I think really annoys me. because a lot of it is not, we're not cancelling people, they are
being held accountable.
Being held accountable. You know, they're
and asking them to sort of to hear the side of the people who have been oppressed down from that. So it's
these are big questions, but absolutely. But to take it down to something not so deep, I want to ask about the technical aspects of this production, because you've had some cool equipment going on there, and up on the wall with the live streaming. Does that go wrong? I mean,
it did for the first two previews.
It does if I touch it. I stay away.
There's a reason Niamh touches none of the camera.
Well, that's someone else we haven't mentioned yet. The wonderful Dan Light, who's our video designer, who sort of helps out with all this and worked so well with Alice's design sort of integrate. We knew that, even off the RD, that a big part of this was. It is the drama of these three, but you had to have a presence of what was going on outside of it. So having that, and to remind us that there is a fourth person or a thing that is conduiting so many other people in the room was quite important that we.
And it does work really well. It works really well. And like I kept thinking, it's like 3 seconds behind.
There's a little delay on it. It's pretty tricky.
Really
What's quite tricky is when I'm down at the front and playing with the camera, I'm always trying to look at the screen, but sometimes I'll turn around and I will just glimpse, I'll glimpse me.
Just your own face.
I'll glimpse my own face, but I'm turning away. And then I'll see myself turn and see myself. It's very strange.
It's kind of like we're all living on Zoom, for the past year and a half. You get obsessed with watching yourself. So it must be tempting. Very good, very good. Okay, right. So, anybody else wants to comment on Beth? Yeah?
I have a question for Rob.
Oh, cool. Go on then.
I was wondering if in this sort of dystopian world, whether it's our world or it's a slightly alternate reality or the future, is the startup something that still has to exist underground, sort of in secret, trying to escape current law enforcement, or is it
I like this
like
question.
widely accepted by the general public?
So this is not a decision. This was not a question. It is a question for me, but this is something we've come up with as a team together. That this has been. There's a lot of world building outside this. So, in our heads, this is not a hotel. This is a warehouse that has lots of different rooms in it that get set up to look like something for each individual person that is there. It's like this. We
It's
think
crafted
that,
to Tony.
this crafted to Tony. He's used to spending a lot of time in hotel rooms. There's the allegations. They're very fuzzy. Like Henry's got a much better idea for his own character, but we actually left that quite open ended for him. But yeah, the kind of punishment fits the crime and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
In our heads, it's actually we think that the kind of policing system or something has kind of collapsed a bit, and all the judiciary is kind of overwhelmed. So this is like it is a very convenient thing for some people in power to allow to happen, and turn a blind eye to in this world, if that makes sense.
It exists.
But you could, as people have said earlier, you could kind of see it. See it in the near future.
It extended from our talks about
certainly in the States.
It is the privatisation of the justice system.
Yeah,
which is
it's
great.
like if you defund the police like which I think is a really great thing to be talking about, but like this is the scary side of like, if you did, but then what does that power vacuum create? What does
There's
that
always
sort
a
of
trade-off
create?
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
there's the other sort of unnamed character in the play is what we refer to as her up above, this person who sort of sets up this business, and we went through many things of did they actually believe in this cause, or did they just take advantage of a situation that could be profitable?
Why make that entity female?
It just was. I don't know why. Honestly, it was just this. I can't even remember why. In my head, though.
You could have given a really poetic answer.
I feel like honesty is generally the best policy. I don't know. It came. I didn't think it was right being about. In my head, it's like a female Gustavo Fring or something from Breaking Bad. Like this, like she's probably got a public face that is very different to what she actually does, and Marcus is just like this front that she uses to make her money because it feeds his need for violence and burying his own past and things like that. I honestly wish I could tell you, but I just don't know why. It just came out as it's a woman in my head. It is.
Hotel California, perfect choice, by the way. Really good, really good. Okay, so my final question that each of you have to answer. Loved the business with the weapons. Loved all that.
We love props.
Very good. So,
no.
If you had to choose your weapon.
Oh, Jesus.
No.
You were sent to do a job. I know. I'm sorry. I'm keeping with the black humor here. But choose your murder weapon.
Wait, no. Sorry, is this the weapon we're murdering with, or what we'd like to be murdered by?
Okay, both.
Oh God! No, choose, please. Need.
I've never put thought into this.
There's too many to choose.
It doesn't have to be something in the bag either. It could be another way to die. Choose your way to die.
My way to die.
Yeah.
And to kill somebody.
Yeah. Choose your way to die and your way to kill.
I think maybe they'd both be the same, like a gun, quick and easy. That's a bit of a shite. Is that a bit of a...
No, that's an answer.
Yeah, I think a gun, quick and easy, because I'm a big coward. So I think I'd do a gun.
Me would be shotgun to the head.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah. I'm a huge Hunter S. Thompson was my hero growing up.
Yeah.
So when he died, I was like, I know, I feel you, Hunter.
Yeah.
I guess it would be something like. Really
depends on who you're
something
killing.
like I'd be really like skilled with. It'd be really like impressive as well. Like one of those cool
Butterfly
things,
knife.
like in Battle Royale, sorry, not in Battle Royale. There's the
like-
ball with the spikes on it.
Oh, a flail.
Yeah.
Flail.
Yeah, one of them.
Wow.
One of them.
Very
Cool.
good. Very good.
Cool. Medieval on this.
Yeah.
For me,
We could be here all night.
I'd like to be very swiftly decapitated.
Very good. Yeah.
I'm basically imagining Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Driving the car,
Yeah.
just with the head.
Straight cut off.
But it's like yours. It's quick. You don't feel it, but it's like,
Yeah.
but at least it's an image afterwards.
Okay.
You're not going to forget that. And then I don't know. God, it depends who. I guess. I don't know. A piano. Drop a piano on someone. Let's go slapstick with it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Death
Brilliant.
by music.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a hard one to follow. I think.
Mike?
Out of a very, very tall window, because at least you get a view.
Nice.
That's it. That's it for both.
For both of them.
Both. Yeah.
Nice.
That's it for both. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So you guys are awesome assassins. Thank you very much. But really, this was really fun. Thank you so much to Niamh and Finlay and Robert and Mike and Nat and Maria.